Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here to conduct the important business of our union. And I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome you to our 132nd regular ALPA Executive Board meeting and say how grateful I am to be standing here in front of you and representing our members. I'd also like to recognize two significant things today that have happened and will be historically important in one case and will happen. The first is today is the 37th anniversary of the United Pilot Strike. So 38 years ago today, we had a strike, which is a wonderful thing to look back to because we won our strike and we made some really significant changes that lasted a very long time. And our contract is steeped in those changes. Secondly, equally worthy of what will be chronicled in Flying the Line 4, because 3 is coming, you, the Executive Board today, will prepare to vote to ratify the agreement and finalize the merger between ALPA and ACPA, the Air Canada Pilots Association. I had the privilege of participating in many of those meetings and roadshows. Many of the meetings occurred here in Vallow, and then the roadshows in Toronto and Winnipeg and in Montreal. And it was really heartwarming to stand in front of people. There was a delineation of seniority where the most senior people were not pro-ALPA, and the vast majority of junior people were pro-ALPA, but we could stand in front of them and explain the processes of ALPA and and change their minds. You could just see it before you. Not everybody, but all but, 16%, right? So it was really heartwarming to stand in front of these people, and I was honored to be able to be part of that. Charlene Hootie is sitting behind you, and her leadership was unmatched in those meetings. It was just amazing. That combined with our staff here at ALPA and the staff at ACPA alike just made for a great merger and a great outcome. I very much look forward to joining you today and welcoming the 4,500 Air Canada members as we merge our organizations to create an even stronger union in the United States and in Canada, and as a result, having over 90% of the Canadian airlines organized under ALPA. Your national leadership team has been extremely busy in these first months of our administration. I'm always thrilled to run into a staff member who says, gosh, you've been busy. I read your report. There's so much in it that you guys have been doing. And my answer is, I'm so happy to hear that because this is all I know. So it might be nice to know that it won't be so busy all the time. Faced with critical issues from the very beginning, we had to hit the ground running. And I'll give you an overview in my report of what highlights some of the crucial work that we've been doing, and particularly in ALPA's Air Safety Organization. But I'd like to begin with the here and now and what's before us in the next few days, and that's on planning for the Jump Seat Committee's planning in the event of a WestJet strike. So there's a letter that's been prepared for the Jump Seat chairs to exercise all means available to get the WestJet pilots home. And we'll have people at the WestJet Jump Seat Committee members at the WestJet Strike Center in Calgary to assist in this project. The entire International Jump Seat Committee is prepared to obtain load factors and notifying crews to look for commuting WestJet pilots and providing guidance as needed. The catch is going to be My ID Travel and ID 90 as third-party companies. Initially, the Jump Seat Committee planned to have listings in advance, thinking that the listings would not be able to be provided as we got closer. However, what they realized was that this would be problematic in the case of that WestJet puts them on inactive status. So all listings on My ID Travel and ID 90 will be canceled. So what will have to happen is we'll have to have the ability to do it at the gate, to list these pilots at the gate. Or if outside security at the ticket counter. So we've requested each airline allow gate listing, but some do not have the ability. So based on the WestJet route structure and the ability to do gate listing, it looks like the greatest assistance will be from Alaska, Delta, Spirit, and United. Every airline that has been asked to help the WestJet pilots has accepted, and the time varies anywhere from 3 to 7 days as a cabin being listed in the cabin. So we'll do everything we can to get them home. The jump seat committee will notify each jump seat chair to be on the lookout and make the walk. It will be especially crucial during this time. There's a conference call scheduled for 3 a.m. Mountain Time on the day of the strike with the jump seat committee people. Now on to other ASO activities. So as you know, there have been numerous safety issues and concerns that have arisen during the first part of the year. ALPA issued 2 safety bulletins raising awareness of the de-ice holdover times and asking people to go back and visually return to the practice of visually inspecting the wings if there was any question. It amazes me that we ever came away from that, but we did. Then on January 11th, the notices to air mission system went down, prompting a domestic ground stop of several hours, resulting in 1,300 flight cancellations and 10,000 flight delays. Thanks to our highly professional staff and connected staff in engineering and air safety, we stayed in close contact with the FAA and airline representatives throughout the day, alerting our members through the fast read and newsflash systems about the outage. You may recall that this incident resulted from a government contractor updating their database. It prompted a congressional hearing the following month in which lawmakers questioned acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan about how this failure could have occurred and how to prevent it in the future. Also, ALPA weighed in on NOTAM failure in a letter to lawmakers calling for funding and improvements to prevent another failure. We've also seen a lot of media coverage about several close calls and pilot incapacitation incidents in recent months. On November 19th, the envoy captain receiving OE became incapacitated after departing Chicago, bound for Columbus, and the OE captain unfortunately passed away once on the ground back in Chicago. Then on December 18th, a United flight from Maui to San Francisco descended rapidly toward the water shortly after takeoff before recovering. On January 13th, at JFK, an American Airlines flight crossed the runway without ATC clearance, causing Delta to abort the takeoff. According to the NTSB preliminary report, the planes came within 1,400 feet of each other. These are all scary incidents, and a litany of them, which is very concerning because it's indicative of a true potential catastrophic accident. Another incident in Austin occurred on February 4th when a FedEx plane went around and while going around advised Southwest to abort the takeoff on the same runway with low visibility. The 2 aircraft narrowly avoided each other, which clearly indicates the need for at least 2 fully trained, well-rested pilots on the flight deck at all times. A third incident occurred on February 27th when a JetBlue aircraft at Boston's Logan Airport was instructed to go around after a Learjet took off without clearance. Then on March 22nd, the captain of a Southwest flight flying from Las Vegas to Columbus suffered a medical emergency. The captain was removed to the back of the aircraft and was attended by a flight attendant, and an off-duty pilot came up to the cockpit to help assist in working the radios. Increased scrutiny of the airline industry because of these safety-related incidents prompted the FAA to organize the call to action, the FAA Call to Action Summit in March that Jason talked about. We had a large presence there. Jason attended with other aviation stakeholders from the industry to address the safety concerns. Also in attendance were and make sure that to ensure that our safety standards are maintained. Also in attendance were Captain Steve Jangelis, Aviation Safety Vice Chair, Captain Doug Wiley, ATS, Air Traffic Services Group Chair, Captain Jeff Sedin, Airport and Ground Equipment Group Chair, and the ASO issued a safety bulletin after that, following the conference, underscoring the vital role that pilots have in mitigating risk and maintaining safety within the national airspace system. NTSB Chair Hamadeh will host, as Jason talked about, a roundtable on May 23rd to talk about runway incursions. In April, I met virtually with the Aviation Safety and Training Councils. This was an opportunity for me to touch base with these people who serve as council members. I would have preferred to join the meeting in person because you get a lot more in person and you can sit through the whole meeting and hear what they have to say. But what I'm finding is we have literally 3 things every week and we have to pick one and we can't be in 3 places. I've asked them to try to schedule it next year, at least on something that we don't know is already scheduled. My job is to make sure our volunteers have the resources they need to do their work. It was also a chance for me to express our need to fix KCM. It's certainly one of our goals, and unfortunately, it's no easy task because of the violations. As Jason pointed out, we could get the randoms to stop, or at least reduce significantly, if we could get the violations down. So we're going to continue to communicate to the pilots. And if you could do the same through your MEC communications, to the point that the pilots say, please make it stop. Stop talking to me about KCM violations, because that's the only way we can see to get it down. We can't come out and say, hey guys, you need to stop having violations, because the press gets a hold of that, right? So we just have to keep pounding, here are the rules, get the violations down. Perhaps one of the most important threats to aviation safety and to the piloting profession is the stated intent of aircraft manufacturers and some airlines to reduce the number of pilots on the flight deck, and Jason talked about this. Somehow these folks have the misguided notion that it's safer to replace us with technology. We're already working aggressively on the regulatory changes that would make reduced crew or single pilot operations possible, is what's happening among these manufacturers, and as soon as 2030. So this is clearly a move to reduce costs at the risk and increase profits at the risk of safety, and we cannot allow this to happen. Jason very quickly recognized that this is going to happen somewhere else, not in the United States, and hence the attack outside as a group through ALPA. Together, we plan to engage with regulators and countries throughout the world in an attempt to that want to remove pilots from the flight deck, making it clear that no technology, no matter how sophisticated, can ever replace at least 2 qualified, experienced, trained, and well-rested pilots. You'll hear us say that over and over again because we can't say it enough. We're not anti-technology, we're pro-technology that enhances safety. In addition to the close calls, you'll likely remember Hawaiian Flight 35, in which more than 30 people were injured when they encountered severe turbulence. ALPA is a party to that investigation in that accident, in which Jason worked directly with NTSB Chair Hamadeh to work on those, on the record, and make sure that protection from recording of interviews. Lithium battery-related incidents have also been in the news recently, and it should be no surprise that they've increased significantly because there's more people carrying electronic devices. Spirit Flight 259 reported a battery fire in an overhead bin on March 1, and the plane landed safely in Jacksonville with no serious injuries. However, 10 people had to be hospitalized as a precaution due to fumes. The FAA recently reported the number of lithium battery fires has increased by more than 42% in the last 5 years. Once again, no wonder. ALPA issued an ops bulletin in March in response to these recent incidents. ALPA is currently monitoring developments in both the U.S. and Canada with respect to the spectrum and 5G issues. The potential impact of 5G technology on aviation, particularly in terms of interference with critical navigation systems and radio altimeters, continues to be of great concern. In the U.S., the period for upgrading radio altimeters to improve the ability to tolerate interference through filters is growing short on mobile wireless, and mobile wireless will go to full power nationwide, except for in the vicinity of 188 C-band mitigated airports on July 1. At that time, operational restrictions will be imposed on any aircraft which has not been upgraded. In contrast, Transport Canada has taken a completely different approach and actually provided restrictions. Restrictions include the use of 5G in the vicinity of 26 airports. Why can't the United States government think to do that? They continue to monitor the situation and improve additional restrictions as more data becomes available in Canada. Recommended limitations identified and called for by ALPA and the aviation community include 3 things: ensuring 5G antennas go downward, direct their power downward away from the flight path, the aircraft flight path. Number 2, requiring lower unwanted emissions for 5G base stations in the band directly used by radio altimeters. And 3, mobile wireless working in cooperation with the FAA to limit 5G near airports. The FAA said that without permanent changes, the FAA's 5G rules, the newly updated radar altimeter will still inadequately protect until the voluntary restrictions at the unless the voluntary restrictions remain in the 188 airports remain in place. It will take years before the radio altimeter equipment can be installed to meet unrestricted transmission rules allowed by the FCC rules and future deployments around the world. This is a big problem. On the security front, ALPA recently hosted the In-Flight Crime Symposium. Representatives from the TSA, FBI, the Federal Air Marshal Service, the Airport Law Enforcement Agencies Network, and the United States Office of the Attorney General sat right here in this room, as well as representatives from frontline employees, transportation employee groups to meet and discuss the disturbing trends with unruly passengers. In 2022, the FAA received 2,456 unruly passenger incidents, resulting in the initiation of 831 investigations and 567 enforcement actions. We're already seeing similar trends in 2023, and they continue to show up in social media and on network news. ALPA has joined the flight attendants and aviation professionals from across the industry to support the Protection from Abusive Passengers Act, which is bipartisan legislation in both the House and the Senate. That would create a no-fly list for people convicted or fined for interfering with flight crews or their flight duties. This was an amazing event, and kudos to ASO Security Chair Wolfgang Koch and his team, along with the engineering and air safety staff. In early March, Captain Ambrosi and Aviation Safety Chair Captain Wolfgang Koch met with the TSA Administrator David Pokosky and his team to discuss the known crew member program. TSA provided data at the time of showing that pilot noncompliance and KCM rules has increased since October of 22. This is not helping us. Pilots are very frustrated. We're all very frustrated, but we've got to get these numbers down. TSA continued to meeting with us and update us quarterly on the noncompliance data, and we'll continue to try to get that message out. ALPA continues to support legislation that would promote more robust security on aircraft, such as the Saraceni Enhanced Aviation Safety Act. The legislation would require all existing passenger aircraft to be retrofitted, and we also need to work on cargo aircraft too, who probably need it as much or more. I used to think that Flying Tigers was an airline, but it's actually FedEx pilots Flying Tigers. Possibilities exist to, and I might like a door for that, a barrier. Pilots exist to participate in training in all 4 of the ASO structure and safety, security, jump seat, and pilot assistance. We have a number of classes have been offered in the past few months, including Foundational ALPA Service Training, FAST, Leadership and Advanced Safety Training, LAST, and CHIRP Initial and Recurrent Training, Critical Incidents Response, and pilot peer support training. These training sessions are scheduled throughout the year and serve as a gateway to greater involvement with ALPA and the opportunity to make a difference to fellow pilots. The ASO's Aviation Jump Seat Group is very proud of a recent achievement. Jason talked about that, so I won't recover it, but it has to do with the app and using the Jump Seat Flight Finder. Just a few weeks ago, ALPA worked to help organize a Cargo Association Summit in Chicago. During that conference, pilot leaders from ALPA met with their counterparts from other labor organizations to discuss factors that are currently shaping the cargo industry and share about ideas on how to best address the concern of cargo pilots. The 3-day conference drew more than 70 participants and 14 different airlines and various pilot unions. While our unions occasionally differ in their approaches, they all see developments in the cargo industry that threaten our profession, and there is plenty of common ground that we can come together on. So we all recognize that we have a shared common interest in defending against these threats, and that we'll need to find ways to work together so we can maintain safety of our jobs and protect our profession. ALPA will be taking the lead for this event here in Vallow in 2024, holding it here in Vallow. Back in early February, I had the privilege of speaking to the ALPA's Leadership Training Conference about my duties as the first vice president and as the National Safety Coordinator. 65 local councils, status reps, and LEC officers from 22 pilot groups came here to Vallow to learn more about ALPA's governance and about their responsibilities as representatives and about the various resources that are available to them that we support their work. Over the course of the 3-day conference, I had the opportunity to talk with many of these newly elected officers and about their roles in the pilot and their pilot groups. It's an honor to meet these people and to have chosen to volunteer in their time and talents to our cause. We need to continue to mentor and encourage these pilots to continue to lead and to recruit more people. In February, I had the opportunity to attend the Women in Aviation, the 34th. I had never been to it before. It attracted 4,500 attendees from around the world, and these are aspiring pilots and pilots in the beginning of their career. The event is a wonderful way for ALPA to connect with these people and show them what we do. But what's really important was we have to continue, and we have on some properties, to get contracts that actually attract people to this profession, and we'll have to continue to work on that on the properties that have yet to get agreements. But that is the goal, and that is the reason that we, in part, that we do that. In a couple months ago, or just over a month ago, we had a Coletta pilot who was stuck in Dubai, and it was an issue of his old passport number was associated with someone who had passed bad checks to the tune of $500,000. So he was flagged by the authorities in Dubai, and it took us 5 weeks and a lawyer and the embassy and Congress, his congressional people and ours, to get him out of Dubai and solve that problem for him. It was a very long process and very frustrating. Amerijet had to return to Incheon after an engine failure and shutdown, and we requested the help of the Korean Pilots Association, who were instrumental in helping our pilots with the authorities and with the language barriers. As you know, one of my responsibilities is to oversee ALPA PAC as the treasurer, and it's, of course, our political voice in Washington, D.C. We are funded, as you know, 100% by voluntary contributions, and it's obviously only for pilots members living in the United States. All donations are used to educate decision makers in Washington and to build bipartisan program. During November 2022, ALPA PAC supported 300 candidates, 84% who won their elections. ALPA's support for these candidates was not based on a political party or ideology, but their ability to advance our issues. And the strength of our relationships with those candidates is very helpful and based on ALPA PAC participation. The PAC is the most effective tool we have in building and maintaining these relationships, and we need it to win in Washington and to educate our decision makers on our pilot partisan issues. David Benke knew that pilots had to speak and advocate for themselves, and it is no less true today. Throughout ALPA's history, we've learned that we must be our own advocates and not depending on just one party. We need to build alliances across party lines. That's why ALPA PAC is the most bipartisan labor PAC in the country, counting liberal Democrats, conservative Republicans, and moderates, and all stripes across as our allies. As we head into the 2024 election, we're focused on things that matter most: protecting safety standards, protecting our skies, protecting job security, and making sure that we have the support when we need it in enforcing our contracts. I would like to thank each of you who are supporting the PAC, and I encourage every ALPA member to do so. And thank you for advocating for ALPA PAC at your airlines. The younger the member, the more important it is for them to be a member of ALPA PAC. In closing, I'd like to remind everyone that the Air Safety Forum will take place in Chicago this year from September 11 to 14. Much of what you've seen on the news over these past 5 months about safety and security concerns will be on the agenda for this event. We'll award ASO award winners in safety, security, jump seat, pilot assistance, and the Superior Airmanship Award. I believe the stories behind these awards will demonstrate the need for at least 2 pilots on the flight deck at all times is a necessary component of aviation safety and security. We have a lot of great speakers for this event, and I look forward to seeing you if you're able to attend. Again, I'd like to tell you how happy I am to be serving in this role as an ALPA National Officer and to work with you in continuing to safeguard our profession. As Jason said, our fellow officers are amazing. It makes it so nice to work with people who are like-minded and good unionists. My only complaint is I can't be in 3 places at once. So I guess that's a good problem to have, because obviously we're getting some work done. Now, if we could only have the membership truly understand what gets done at this level as well as on their behalf throughout the system. I keep racking my brain as how do you communicate that? Because as Jason said, you don't know how good the staff is. You don't know how good all these things are done on your behalf. So if you have ideas about this, I truly am trying to figure out how do we communicate this? How do you get this message out without saying, oh, look at us, we're great, because that's not what I'm trying to say at all. This is a critical time for airline pilots. We have very important work to do. So thank you for your attention this morning.